The night began like any other. The faint hum of the city outside our apartment windows was barely audible over the soft jazz Evelyn had playing in the background. She was in the bedroom, standing in front of the mirror, carefully fixing her hair. The golden glow of the lamp highlighted every detail of her. She looked flawless. It was one of those moments where I wondered how I had ever gotten so lucky, but tonight something was different. "CL," she called out, her voice unusually cheerful. "Does this dress look all right?" I looked up from my book, forcing a smile. "You look beautiful as always." She beamed at me, but the expression didn't reach her eyes. It hadn't. For weeks, Evelyn had always been warm and radiant, her laughter filling every corner of our home lately, though that light had dimmed. Conversations were shorter, her patience thinner. I catch her staring at her phone with a look that wasn't meant for me still. I convinced myself it was just stress from work. That's what people do in a marriage, right? They give each other the benefit of the doubt. She spun in front of the mirror, the hem of her silver dress catching the light. "Sarah's party is going to be amazing. You're coming, right?" Of course I replied, though I dreaded it. Evelyn and I were opposites in many ways. She thrived in social settings, while I preferred the quiet for her. These parties were a chance to shine a stage to showcase her wit and charm for me. They were a minefield of forced smiles and awkward small talk. But tonight I told myself I had to be there. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was slipping away from us, and maybe this was my chance to pull it back together. I should have trusted my instincts. Instead, when we arrived, the party was already in full swing. Laughter and clinking glasses filled the air as people mingled effortlessly. Evelyn was instantly swept into a group of her friends, her laughter cutting through the noise, like a melody. I watched her from across the room, nursing a drink, feeling out of place, but trying not to let it show. Then I saw him, a tall man with dark hair and an air of arrogance that made my skin crawl. He was standing too close to Evelyn, leaning in as he spoke to her. She laughed, tossing her head back, and lightly touched his arm. It wasn't the kind of laugh she shared with me anymore. My grip tightened on the glass in my hand. I tried to tell myself it was nothing, just her being friendly, but as the night wore on, I couldn't ignore the way they moved together, their connection obvious to anyone paying attention, and then it happened. I stepped out onto the balcony to clear my head, the cold night air hitting my face like a slap. When I turned back toward the party, I saw them through the window. Evelyn and him standing in a shadowed corner, their bodies too close, their faces inches apart. My stomach twisted into knots. My mind raced with questions and accusations. But I stayed frozen, watching as the woman I loved betrayed me in plain sight. She must have felt my gaze because she suddenly turned, her eyes locking with mine. For a split second, guilt flickered across her face before she quickly covered it with indifference. She whispered something to him and then walked toward me, her smile fixed, but her eyes cold. "CL," she said softly, as if nothing had happened. "You look upset. Are you okay?" I stared at her, my mind screaming with everything I wanted to say but couldn't. Instead, I forced a smile. "Yeah, just needed some air." She nodded, her expression unreadable, and walked back into the party. She thought I'd let it go. She thought I'd bury my anger like I always did, but she had no idea what was coming, because in that moment I decided I wouldn't let her walk over me again. This time, I'd be the one holding the cards, and Evelyn would never see it coming. I didn't sleep that night. Evelyn, as usual, went straight to bed after the party, acting like nothing had happened. I lay beside her, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing with possibilities. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her with him. How close they were, how comfortable she looked in his presence. But instead of confronting her, I stayed silent. I knew Evelyn better than she realized. If I pressed her now, she'd deny everything, spin it around to make me seem crazy or insecure. That was her way, always in control, always one step ahead. Not this time. The next morning, I waited for her to leave for work. She barely looked at me as she grabbed her keys, throwing a quick, "I'll be late tonight," over her shoulder. I nodded, fighting indifference, but as soon as the door closed, I sprang into action. I started with her phone. Evelyn had always been protective of it, but I knew her passcode. Her vanity was her weakness, and she'd used her own birth date. As I scrolled through her messages, my heart sank there. It was his name, Damon. Their texts were subtle but damning, flirty exchanges, inside jokes and plans to meet up. There were no explicit details, but they didn't need to be. It was all there, written between the lines. Then I found the photos. They weren't graphic, but they didn't need to be. A selfie of them at what looked like a bar, her hand resting on his chest. Another of them laughing together, his arm draped around her shoulders. She wasn't just betraying me, she was flaunting it. I closed the phone, my hand shaking for a moment. I thought about calling her, screaming at her, demanding an explanation, but something stopped me. She didn't deserve my anger, not yet. Instead, I called into work saying I'd be out for the day. Then I grabbed my laptop and started digging if she thought she could lie to me, manipulate me, and get away with it. She was dead wrong. I started by looking up Damon. His name, combined with what little I knew about him from their messages, was enough to find his social media. He wasn't shy about showing off his life. Photos of expensive cars, lavish vacations, and of course, women. Lots of women. He was a walking cliché, the kind of man who thrived on attention and thrived even more on stealing it from others. I made notes of everything his workplace, his favorite spots, even the gym he checked into almost daily. If Evelyn wanted to throw her life away for a man like this, I'd make sure she regretted it. But my focus wasn't just on him. Evelyn was just as guilty, if not more. So 4 years I had been the steady, reliable husband. I had overlooked her mood swings, forgiven her selfishness, and supported her dreams, and how had she repaid me by humiliating me, by spitting on everything we built together. I wasn't just going to confront her, I was going to dismantle the lies she'd woven around herself piece by piece. When Evelyn came home that evening, she acted like everything was normal. She kissed me on the cheek, the faint smell of wine lingering on her breath, and asked about my day. I played along, smiling and nodding, while inside I was seething. Work was fine, I said, keeping my voice. Even how was your day busy, she replied, heading toward the bedroom to change. You know how it is. I followed her, leaning against the doorway. As she rifled through her closet, busy enough to meet Damon, her hand froze my dear, and for a moment the room was deathly silent. Then she turned, her expression carefully blank. What are you talking about? I saw the texts, Evelyn. I said, my voice cold and steady. I saw the photos. Don't bother denying it. Her eyes flickered, a flash of panic, quickly replaced by anger. You went through my phone. That's what you're upset about. I snapped, not the fact that you've been sneaking around behind my back. She crossed her arms, her lips curling into a smirk. You're being ridiculous. Clyde Damon is just a friend. You're blowing this way out of proportion. A friend. I shot back, my voice rising. Friends don't send texts, like those friends don't meet up in secret. Stop lying to me, Evelyn. She rolled her eyes, brushing past me. Believe what you want. I don't have time for this. But as she walked away, I saw the slight tremor in her hands, the way her shoulders tensed. She knew the walls were closing in, and so did I that night, as Evelyn slept. Soundly beside me, I stay awake, planning my next move. This wasn't just about catching her in the act. It was about making her face the consequences of her actions. She thought she could keep me in the dark. She thought she had all the power, but she was wrong. This time, I wasn't just going to fight back. I was going to win. The morning after our confrontation, Evelyn acted as though nothing had happened. She floated around the kitchen, humming to herself while making coffee. She didn't even glance in my direction, it was like. Our conversation the night before had been erased from her memory, but I remembered every word, every flicker of guilt that crossed her face. And while she pretended everything was fine, I was finalizing a plan that would leave her no room to hide. I'd realized something important in the sleepless hours of the night. Confronting her wouldn't work. Evelyn was too skilled at twisting the narrative, too good at turning the tables and making herself the victim if I wanted her to face the truth. I needed proof. Proof so undeniable, so irrefutable, that even she wouldn't be able to talk her way out of it. That's where Damon came in over the next few days. I started piecing together every detail I could find about their affair. I installed tracking software on her phone. A move that felt dirty and invasive, but necessary. Every message she sent, every call she made, every location she visited, it was all locked, and the more I uncovered, the angrier I became. The text between Evelyn and Damon grew bolder, more explicit. They talked about the times they'd met up, the places they'd gone. She even told them about our argument, laughing about how Clyde was being dramatic again. I clenched my fists, reading her words over and over. She wasn't just betraying me, she was mocking me. But instead of confronting her, I stayed quiet. I played the role of the oblivious husband, smiling when she came home late, pretending not to notice when she disappeared into the room to take his calls every time she looked at me with that smug indifference. I felt the fire inside me burn hotter. Then one Friday night, I saw my chance. Evelyn had spent the entire day texting Damon, and from the tone of their messages, it was clear they were planning to meet. Sure enough, around 7:00 p.m., she wailed into the living room, dressed to the nines in a sleek black dress and heels that clicked against the hardwood floor, heading out. I asked C, casually keeping my tone light. Yeah. She replied, not even bothering to look at me. Girls' night, don't wait up. I nodded, forcing a smile. Have fun. The moment she left, I sprang into action. I grabbed my keys, my phone, and the small recording device I'd purchased earlier that week. It didn't take long to track her. Her phone's location showed she was at a high-end hotel downtown. I arrived a few minutes later, my heart pounding as I stepped into the lobby, the place a ray of wealth and indulgence with crystal chandeliers and polished marble floors. I spotted Evelyn immediately. She was sitting at the bar with Damon, laughing at something he'd said, her hand resting lightly on his arm. For a moment, I stood frozen, watching them. I felt a strange mix of rage and heartbreak, my chest tightening as I took in the scene. This was the woman I had loved for over a decade, the woman I had built a life with, and here was throwing it all away for a man who didn't even bother hiding his arrogance. But I didn't let the emotions consume me. Instead, I pulled out my phone and started recording. I captured every moment, the way she leaned into him, the way he whispered in her ear, the way she smiled like a teenager in love. It was painful, but it was necessary. After a while, they got up and headed toward the elevators. I followed at a distance, keeping my head down to avoid being noticed when the elevator doors closed. Behind them, I took the stairs, my legs trembling with a mix of adrenaline and dread. By the time I reached their floor, they had already disappeared into a room I didn't need to know what was happening inside. I had enough evidence to confirm everything, but I wasn't done yet. I slipped the recording device under the door, pressing it against the carpet to catch every sound. Then I took a photo of the door, making sure the room number was clearly visible. Satisfied, I walked back to the car, my mind racing with what I'd just done. I had the proof I needed, but this wasn't just about exposing Evelyn's lies. I wanted her to feel the weight of her choices, to understand what she had done to me, to us, and for that I needed to be patient. When Evelyn came home later that night, she was all smiles, her mood lighter than it had been in weeks. She kissed me on the cheek and asked how my evening was, as if she hadn't just spent hours with another man. It was fine, I said, my voice steady. How about yours? She shrugged, her smile widening. Oh, just the usual, nothing special. I nodded, biting back the anger that threatened to spill over. Glad you had a good time. She thought she had one. She thought her secret was safe, but she had no idea what was coming. The next morning, Evelyn woke up like nothing had happened. She hummed softly as she made her way to the kitchen, the smell of coffee wafting through the house. Her usual indifference toward me had been replaced by an almost cheerful demeanor, as if her guilt had been erased by Damon's attention. Meanwhile, I sat at the dining table, sipping my coffee, pretending to scroll through my phone. In reality, I was watching her every move, calculating my next steps. The evidence I'd gathered was sitting on my laptop, neatly organized into a folder: photos, videos, and audio recordings. It was all there waiting to be unleashed, but I wasn't ready to confront her just yet. Evelyn looked over her shoulder at me. You're up early? Got something on your mind? I smiled faintly. Just couldn't sleep. Work's been a bit stressful lately. She nodded, barely paying attention. Well, don't overdo it. You need to take care of yourself. The irony of her words almost made me laugh. Here she was lecturing me about self-care while stabbing me in the back, but I bit my tongue and let her carry on, knowing that my silence was more powerful than any argument. After breakfast, she left for her usual Saturday yoga class. At least, that's what she told me. I already knew. She wasn't going anywhere near a yoga mat. Her gym bag might as well have been a prop. A flimsy alibi for yet another rendezvous with Damon. The moment she was out the door, I got to work. My first move was subtle, but deliberate. I uploaded the photos and videos I'd taken at the hotel to a private cloud drive, ensuring I had backups in case anything happened to my laptop. Then I started printing them out one by one, each image a stark reminder of her betrayal. But the real gem was the audio recording. It captured everything: their laughter, their whispered promises, and even the way she spoke about me like I was some clueless fool. He doesn't suspect a thing, Evelyn had said, her voice dripping with disdain. Clyde's too busy with his boring little life to notice anything. Damon had laughed, his voice smug and confident. You're lucky he's such a pushover. Most guys would have figured it out by now. The words cut deep, but they also fueled my resolve. I wasn't a pushover, and they were about to find out just how wrong they were. By the time Evelyn returned home, I had everything ready. The photos were neatly placed in an envelope, the audio file saved onto a flash drive, but I didn't confront her, not yet. Instead, I acted like everything was normal. How was yoga? I asked. Glancing up from the book, I was pretending to read. Exhausting, she replied, wiping her forehead dramatically, but it was good to get out and clear my head. I nodded, hiding my smirk. If only she knew how much clearer her head was about to get. Over the next few days, I laid the groundwork for my plan. I made copies of the evidence and sent them to a trusted friend, someone who knew about Evelyn's recent behavior but had wisely kept their opinions to themselves. You sure you want to do this? My friend Greg asked as he flipped through the photos. I've never been more sure of anything, I replied. She's been playing me for a fool, and I've had enough. Greg nodded, his expression grim. All right, just be careful. This kind of thing can get messy. Messy is an understatement, I muttered, already picturing the chaos that was about to unfold. Finally, the day came when I decided to strike. Evelyn was heading to another party that evening, one she claimed was a work event. I knew Damon would be there, and I knew exactly what I had to do as she got ready. I watched her from the doorway, my arms crossed. She caught my gaze in the mirror and raised an eyebrow. What, she asked, her tone defensive. Nothing, I said with a shrug. You look nice, thanks, she replied. Her voice flat. She grabbed her purse and turned to me. Don't wait up, okay? These things usually run late. I nodded, letting her walk out the door without another word, but as soon as she left, I grabbed my car keys and followed her. I parked a few blocks away from the venue, watching as she greeted Damon outside the entrance. They looked too comfortable, too familiar, like a couple who had nothing to hide. Little did they know their secret was about to come crashing down. I waited until the party was in full swing before making my move with the envelope of photos in hand. I walked straight into the venue, ignoring the curious glances from strangers. My heart was pounding, but my resolve was unshakable. And there she was, Evelyn standing with Damon in the middle of the room, laughing like she didn't have a care in the world. I walked up to them, my footsteps deliberate and heavy. The moment she saw me, her smile froze and the color drained from her face. Clyde. She stammered, her voice barely audible. What are you doing here? I didn't answer. Instead, I pulled out the envelope and handed it to her. Open it. I said, my voice calm, but I see she hesitated, her hands trembling as she took the envelope. Damon watched silently, his smug expression replaced by unease as Evelyn pulled out the photos. Her eyes widened in horror. She flipped through them, each one more damning than the last. The room fell silent as she dropped the photos onto the floor, her face pale. Clyde. I can explain, she started, but I cut her off. Don't. I said sharply, you've done enough explaining to Damon. It's my turn now. I turned to the crowd, raising my voice so everyone could hear. Ladies and gentlemen, I began. I'm sorry to interrupt your evening, but I thought you should know who you're dealing with. This woman. My wife has been lying, cheating, and disrespecting me for months. And this man here, he's her partner in crime. Gasps and murmurs filled the room as Evelyn's carefully constructed facade began to crumble, but this was just the beginning. Evelyn stood frozen, her mouth slightly open, as the crowd around her erupted in whispers. Damon shifted uncomfortably, his smug demeanor replaced by unease. I could see the wheels turning in her head trying to salvage the situation, but she was out of her depth. Clyde, Leeton, talk about this privately, she hissed, her voice trembling but still trying to sound authoritative. Privately, I echoed, raising an eyebrow. You didn't care about privacy when you were sneaking around with him. Why start now? The crowd had formed a loose circle around us. Their curiosity, too strong to resist, Evelyn's face turned red. A mixture of anger and embarrassment as she grabbed my arm. Stop it, she whispered through gritted teeth. You're making a scene. A scene, I laughed bitterly. You think this is a scene? Evelyn, this is a reality check. You've been playing me for months, and now everyone gets to see the truth. I turned to Damon, who was glaring at me like I was the one ruining his night. You're not walking away from this either, I said, pointing at him. You thought you could just waltz into my life, take what's mine, and leave me in the dirt. Think again. Damon opened his mouth to respond, but closed it again when I pulled out the flash drive from my pocket. Oh, and in case you're thinking of denying anything, I have it all right here. Every word, every laugh, every lie you two. Didn't even bother being discreet. The room was deathly silent now, everyone hanging on my words. Evelyn's hands were shaking, and I could see tears welling up in her eyes, but I didn't feel pity, not anymore. I gave you everything, Evelyn, I said, my voice breaking despite my best efforts to stay strong. I trusted you, I built a life with you, and this is how you repay me, Clyde. She started, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm sorry, I know I interrupted. You don't get to be sorry now. You made your choice, Evelyn. You chose him, and now you can have him. I dropped the flash drive onto the table in front of her. The small device, feeling like a weight lifted off my shoulders. Consider this my parting gift. Share it with your new boyfriend. I'm sure you'll have plenty to talk about without waiting for her response. I turned and walked out of the room, the whispers and stares following me all the way to the door. When I reached my car, I sat there for a moment, my hands gripping the steering wheel as the adrenaline slowly faded. The pain was still there, sharp and unforgiving, but so was the sense of relief. For the first time in months, I felt like I was in control again as I drove away. I didn't look back. Evelyn's world was crumbling behind me, and she only had herself to blame, but I wasn't done yet. The next few days were quiet, almost eerily. So Evelyn didn't come home that night, nor did she call or text me. I didn't care. My decision was made, and there was no turning back. I spent the weekend packing my things, leaving behind anything that reminded me of her photos. Gifts, even the mug she'd given me for our anniversary last year, it all went into a box destined for the trash by Monday. I was ready to take the next step. My lawyer, an old friend named Frank, had been expecting my call. I've got everything you need, I told him, dropping the envelope and flash drive on his desk. I want this divorce finalized as soon as possible. Frank glanced at the evidence, his expression grim. This is solid. He said she won't have a leg to stand on. That's the point. I replied she made her choice now. She can deal with the consequences. I left Frank's office feeling lighter than I had in weeks. The weight of Evelyn's betrayal was still there, but it no longer crushed me. I had taken control of the situation, and that was enough for now. Later, that evening, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost ignored it, but curiosity got the better of me. Clyde, Evelyn's voice came through the line, shaky and desperate. We need to talk. There's nothing to talk about, I said coldly. Please, she pleaded. I made a mistake. I snapped. Cutting her off. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary or burning dinner. What you did wasn't a mistake, Evelyn. It was a choice, and you chose to destroy everything we had. There was silence on the other end, followed by a choked sob for a brief moment. I felt a pang of guilt, but I quickly pushed it aside. She didn't deserve my sympathy. I've already filed for divorce. I continued. You'll be hearing from my lawyer soon, Clyde, please. She begged, her voice breaking. Don't do this. We can fix this. There's nothing left to fix. I said firmly, goodbye, Evelyn. I hung up, feeling a strange sense of closure. She had made her bed, and now she would have to lie in it. But deep down, I knew this wasn't the end. Not yet. Evelyn didn't take my word as final. Over the next few days, she bombarded me with calls, texts, and emails. At first, they were filled with apologies and pleas to talk. But when I didn't respond, her tone shifted. You're being dramatic. One message read, we can move past this if you just stop acting like a child. Another was more aggressive. Fine, if you want to throw our marriage away over a misunderstanding. That's on you. Don't think you're the victim here, Clyde. I couldn't help but laugh bitterly at the irony. She was the one who cheated, lied, and humiliated me. Yet somehow in her twisted mind, I was the one at fault. But then she crossed a line. It was late one evening when I received an email from Damon. The subject line read, let's talk like men. I almost deleted it without opening it, but curiosity got the better of me. The message was short and to the point. Clyde, Evelyn told me you're trying to ruin her life out of spite. I get that you're upset, but this is getting ridiculous. Let's meet and settle this like adults. The sheer audacity of it made my blood boil. Damon, the man who had wrecked my marriage, was now trying to paint himself as the voice of reason. I stared at the screen. My mind racing. Part of me wanted to respond, to tell him exactly what I thought of him and his so-called maturity. But I knew that was exactly what he wanted, action. Instead, I decided to let my actions speak louder than words. The next morning, I called my lawyer, Frank, and asked him to escalate the divorce proceedings, make it airtight. I said, I don't want her getting a single dime more than she's entitled to. You got it, Frank replied. But Clyde, are you sure you don't want to keep some of this out of court? It could get messy. Messy is fine. I said I'm done playing nice after hanging up. I spent the rest of the day tying up loose ends. I canal Evelyn's access to our joint accounts, changed the locks on the house, and even updated my will if she thought she still had control over any part of my life. She was about to get a rude awakening that evening. Evelyn showed up at the house unannounced. I heard the sharp knock on the door and hesitated for a moment before opening it. She stood there, her makeup smudged, her hair disheveled. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. Clyde, she said, her voice trembling. We need to talk. There's nothing to talk about, I said. Keeping my tone steady, please, she begged, stepping closer. I know I messed up. I know I hurt you, but we can fix this. We can go to therapy, start over, anything you want. I shook my head, my expression unreadable. Evelyn, you don't get it, do you? This isn't something you can fix with an apology or a promise to change. You didn't just make a mistake. You made a choice over and over again. You chose him over me, and now you have to live with the consequences. Tears streamed down her face. But I didn't waver. I loved you. I continued, my voice cracking. I would have done anything for you. But you took that love and threw it away like it meant nothing. So no, Evelyn. We can't fix this. It's over, she sobbed, covering her face with her hands, but I didn't feel the pity I thought I might. Instead, I felt relief for the first time. In months, I was free. Goodbye, Evelyn, I said, stepping back and closing the door as I locked it behind me. I took a deep breath, letting the weight of the moment sink in. She was gone, and so was the life I thought we had, but I wasn't done yet. The divorce hearing came quicker than I expected. Evelyn looked defeated when she walked into the courtroom, her once confident demeanor replaced by a hollow expression. Damon wasn't there. He probably bailed as soon as things got difficult. Frank laid out the evidence, methodically, leaving no room for doubt. The judge's decision was swift and decisive. Evelyn would walk away with far less than she had hoped for. As we left the courtroom, Evelyn tried to approach me one last time. Clyde, she said softly, her voice almost unrecognizable. I'm sorry. I looked at her, my face devoid of emotion. I hope you find what you're looking for, Evelyn, but it's not me. And with that, I walked away, leaving her and everything we built behind. In the months that followed, I rebuilt my life piece by piece. It wasn't easy, but it was worth it. For the first time in years, I felt like myself again, strong, confident, and free. Evelyn tried to contact me a few times after that, but I never responded. She had made her choice and I had made mine. Now, as I sit here writing this, I realize that I'm not angry anymore. What Evelyn did was unforgivable, but it taught me a valuable lesson. Sometimes the best revenge is simply walking away, and that's exactly what I did.